It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to call the Blanco County Commissioners Court to order this Tuesday, February 25th, 2020. Ask Ms. Waller to call the roll.
Judge Gray.
Here.
Commissioner Muir.
Here.
Commissioner Eaker.
Here.
Commissioner Leeson.
Here.
And Commissioner Burnett.
Here.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we take up public comments this morning, I just want to publicly state for the county that we had one of the county employees in a serious accident over the weekend, and he's in the hospital and will be undergoing a long recuperative period, and we are all thinking of him, sending him our prayers and our well wishes, and just wanted to recognize that that has occurred and that we are all mindful of it. Public comments today are two sign-ups. Mr. Welch or Mrs. Welch. Mrs. Welch, your name was on top, but whichever one of you would like to start out.
I am Deanne Welch of Blanco County, and I have prepared a few statements. And as soon as you give me your undivided attention and make eye contact, Judge Gray, I will proceed.
Well, then you're about to lose your time. I will conduct myself in this meeting in a professional and civil manner, but I will continue to do the work that I'm entitled to do. And you can stand there and be silent, but we're not going to wait 3 minutes for that. It's awkward for folks. Nobody wants to do that. Either you can continue with your comments or you can sit down.
Well, I hope you can hear what I'm saying if you won't give me your
Ma'am, I
attention.
hear just fine. Thank you.
I'm concerned about agenda item number 12. I'm concerned about the voter purging that took place in this county a year ago. So I've been reading up about Texas history of discrimination in voting. And I found that from Gulak v. Perry in 2006, Texas has a long, well-documented history of discrimination that has touched upon the rights of African Americans and Hispanics to register, to vote, or to participate otherwise in the electoral process. Then now we know from last year that Texas is purging votes of naturalized citizens who are equally as American as you and I, Judge Gray. And I took the sample ballot and I learned that as part of the Republican platform, Texas election officials should have the directives of the Office of the Governor to purge illegal voters from the vote rolls and verify that each new registered voter is a U.S. citizen. So it seems that the pattern of discrimination is continuing in this state and in this county. And according to agenda item number 12, you want to reassign election duties to the defendant in the purge case. And that just seems inappropriate. Thank you.
Mr. Welch.
I'm Kenneth Welch of Blanco County, speaking on agenda item 12. In February of 2019, Blanco County was a defendant in one of 3 voting rights lawsuits. Plaintiffs brought suit because voter rolls were being purged. The lawsuits were consolidated and settled in a significant expense to taxpayers for court costs and attorney's fees. Keith Ingram, Director of Elections for the Secretary of State, testified that county officials had not followed election training procedure, which required them to review flag voter registrations before sending out notices of voter revocation. The Secretary of State, David Whitley, resigned in disgrace, and the Blanco County Elections Registrar at the time was Kristen Spees. Shortly thereafter, this court determined that Blanco County needs an election administrator and hired Oscar Villarreal. Judge Gray remarked that Mr. Villarreal was an excellent choice and the county was lucky to get him. Mr. Villarreal went about righting the wrongs, strengthening the election processes, and perfecting a website for Blanco County. Then Mr. Villarreal conducted a very successful constitutional amendment election before suddenly leaving his post. Now, as we undertake the most consequential election of my lifetime, this court, by virtue of Agenda Item 12, is appearing to trust Kristen Spees once again with election integrity. Kristen Spees and Laura Wallach are both elected officials in this county. The Texas Constitution makes it clear that elected officials are the servants of the people. They are not the servants of the Secretary of State. It is not unusual for county clerks and tax assessor collectors across the state to perform election duties. However, it appears today you are preparing to increase public compensation for both Spees and Wallach. Section 152.013 of the Texas Local Governmental Code requires that compensation be established during the regular budget hearing and adoption proceedings. Section 31.035 states a county elections administrator may not be a candidate for a public office or an office of a political party, hold a public office, or hold an office in a position of a political party. Are you planning to increase pay for these two individuals sharing election duties that have always been in their position descriptions? Or is it your intent that they assume the role of the former election administrator, a distinction without a difference? I'd be glad to take your comments.
No, that's not how public comment works. It's not a dialogue, but you're welcome to continue until your 3 minutes are up. Have you concluded?
Well, no, but it's my understanding that the law says if you have a dialogue with me, which you just had, that you are free to answer
The law
questions.
does not require me to do so.
You're
sir.
right, you're right, but you can. I'm just asking, is that your intention?
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. This is for your records and for the minutes, please.
All right. Item 4 is, for your review, Commissioners, is the proposed minutes from the 11th of February meeting.
I make a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes and to approve the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Eaker, discussion.
I abstain from this vote.
One abstention. Anything else? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One line item transfer for you to review and ratify involving a transfer in precinct 1 from Road and Bridge culverts to Road and Bridge maintenance.
I make a motion ratifying and approving the line item transferred as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Granberg, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next for your review are the outstanding bills.
I make a motion to approve the outstanding bills in the amount of $37,289.78.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Eaker, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 7 involves Commissioner Weir's precinct and a replat.
Yes, there's replat two small tracks in Cielo Springs. And they're taking two and merging them into one track, 2.07, 2.02 to a 4.09 track. looked at it. They've filled out all the proper paperwork to release the utility easements. So I make a motion that we approve this once all of the fees have been paid.
I'm sorry.
I make a motion that we approve this replat and name it 71R.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Leisman, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, another replat over in Commissioner Granberg's precinct.
This is a combining of 4 lots and small lots in Rock and J subdivision, 736, 737, 738, 739, going to be combined into lot 736R. Everything is in order. They're just combining small lots to make them a bigger one. So I move that we approve the replat of these lots in the Rock and J subdivision.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Eaker, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The Precinct 2 water tank.
Yes, sir. We have a water tank. It's beyond usable. It leaks more water than you can put in it. So I make a motion that we declare it surplus property and authorize the disposal of it in the proper manner.
Is there a second?
I will second it.
Commissioner Weir, discussion.
Is that putting it on gov deals, or are we going to
No,
just
it's
scrap it?
just scrap it. It's about it.
I know the water tank you're talking to. I know it's no good, but do we have to put it in gov deals, or no? We
If
can.
it's surplus, we,
Okay, that's fine.
so metal recycle maybe?
Yeah.
Metal recycle.
Just other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10 involves the newly created Trinity Oaks Preserve subdivision in North County and a consideration of whether or not to reduce the irrevocable letter of credit at this point. Commissioner Leisman.
So this is a subdivision that's going on in my precinct. The roads have been completed, and so I would like to make a motion to negotiate the reducing of the value of the irrevocable letter of credit for the Trinity Oaks Preserve subdivision.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Leisman. Excuse me, Commissioner Weir. So, discussions. The current letter of credit is almost $1,930,000, right?
Right.
And the maintenance is the maintenance bond after that is almost 200,000, 199, I think.
Correct.
And they've completed all the roads.
The roads have been completed.
So the question is, there's some other things to still be completed, and you want to be.
Correct. There's a TCEQ approved water system that will be installed, and I would like to make sure that the construction of that is still included in the irrevocable letter of credit. Make sure that the individuals that have purchased property in that subdivision have an assurance that they're going to complete what they need to complete.
So by your motion and your second, I would probably anticipate that the negotiated reduction that you come up with will be somewhere between those two numbers.
I would think so, yes, sir.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have 4 video cameras on the agenda for these are for the
New vehicles.
The new vehicles, and in connection with the Zerker system that we have, and we have Lieutenant Woodring, Chief Deputy Leonard, and Sheriff Jackson here for questions.
I'd make a motion to approve the specs for the purchase of the 4 fleet video cameras for the new patrol vehicles that the LEC has outlined in the capital equipment portion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Eager, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Ms. Spees and Ms. Walla came to me and asked about the idea of compensation for what they're undertaking, and so currently for elections. And so I did put it on the agenda for a discussion, and I think that they would both like, I hope that they would both like to speak to you because they can tell you better than I ever could what they do and how they do it. But just by way of introduction, let me make a couple of comments. The first is, pardon me, I don't think that anybody, I don't think that anybody is more interested in getting an elections administrator than Ms. Spees and Ms. Walla. And so we're as a report to the Commissioner's Court, this is a temporary matter. As a matter of fact, the Elections Commission meets again tomorrow, continues to meet to interview prospective applicants for an elections administrator. The full intent is to have an elections administrator once a satisfactory applicant is found. But that's where we are at the moment. In the meantime, under the law, the duties revert back to the registration duties, voter registrar duties, revert back to the tax assessor collector, and the election administration duties revert back to the county clerk, and they are doing them. In all the years past that I'm aware of, and I don't know when it started, I'm sure there was some point, the county clerk has been paid a stipend for, or given an additional amount for, in compensation for the fact that the county clerk conducted elections. Now, the tax assessor collector wasn't, as best I can tell, was not given the same sort of increment for, and by the way, you all may have better information. You're certainly welcome to tell me where I've missed on this, or maybe Ms. Swift can help us with the history. But I believe that the tax assessor collector didn't get similar consideration for a couple of reasons. One being the old system where the tax assessor collector was also the chief appraiser caused the tax assessor collector to be really off-site more than on-site. And it appears to me that we may have even compensated the person that was the head person in the office over at tax assessor collector's office, Ms. Cresta, to be the surrogate voter registrar, if you will. So, in my mind, it's not inappropriate for Ms. Spees to think that she, like Ms. Walla, ought to be compensated a little something extra to do this function. But that is certainly a Commissioner Court decision, and there are certainly other sides to the issue and other thoughts about it. But I'm just saying that I had no problem putting it on the agenda because I could see a rationale for why they might think they are due and owing a little something extra for doing what they're doing, frankly. And it's not getting any easier at the elections process. There's only getting to be more and more voters, more and more registrations, more and more ballot rules, and more to do for elections. I guess I've probably spoken all I need to say on this. Which one of you would like to comment?
Just getting set up for an election includes getting all of the candidate information from the party chairs and getting that submitted to ES&S, which programs my ballots. I then have to figure out how many ballots I'm going to have to order, and getting the programming done for the DS200s, which is a vote tabulator, as well as it the Express Votes, which is the printer that will print the voter's request. So I've just did all of that, tabulating and voting media into be programmed. I have to post all notices mandated by the Secretary of State to the county's election webpage, submit required public notices to the newspapers. I have to secure the polling locations for early voting as well as election day, as well as secure poll workers and ask for help from my party chairs to assist me with that. Hold early voting clerk training, hold election day clerk training, get all of the supplies and ballots together for the polling sites for, again, early and election day. Program all the 12 machines and the 7 DS200s with the qualifying election information. Process any applications for ballot by mails that come in and process those once I receive them. Process the outgoing ballots in the mail and enter all of that into the Secretary of State's team website. Process those when they come back in through my office and through the team again. Correspondence numerous times daily from the Secretary of State's office along with party chairs and poll workers. Upload the voter history every night into the Secretary of State's webpage so that it can be posted. Be available to any and all election workers at any time needed, day or night, during an election process. Numerous phone calls from voters to find out where they vote, when they vote. Explain the voting procedures. Know all of the laws pertaining to anything election related. Send rejection letters for any applications or ballots if they're not acceptable by not having the correct information on them. Assemble the ballot board. I mean, there are so many duties involved in this, and I have spent every weekend in November up here preparing for elections on top of county clerk duties. So it's a lot of extra time that I spend. So I just feel like, you know, we've taken this back on, and a little bit of compensation to show appreciation would be really appreciated.
I'll just touch what we do. We've been working on a mass mail out since Oscar left in November. It's taken all 3 of us actually to do that because it was so many. We're up to a little over 8,700 voters in Blanco County right now. As far as election goes, the poll pads reside in my office, so we have to take into account of getting 9 poll pads ready for the election. It's not an easy task. Laura said we work every weekend in November. She really meant every weekend in
February, sorry, you're correct.
And we've both been here all month. Last week was a long week. This week is an extremely long week. The reports that Laura uploads to the Secretary of State come from my office every night, so that means I stay here every night, just to make sure those are uploaded. So she gets the information to upload to the Secretary of State. So, between the 2 of us, we are always on call for voters, or we call to ask when they can vote, how they can vote, times and places. It's a lot of work that came back to us unexpectedly, on top of the duties we already do for our offices that are growing rapidly.
Can I ask you a question? In the past, before we had an elections administrator, y'all did this for a number of years, if I'm not mistaken. And did y'all have any problem with either party chair at that time with the way that y'all were doing it at that time? Either party chair?
I never really had as many issues, I think, as Laura did with party chairs, only because she was the election contact.
But did Ms. Wall, did they accept the fact that y'all were doing the elections? And y'all did it for a number of years, with both party chairs involved in the deal, and there was no problem.
Right. These are the most active party chairs we've had, though. So.
Well, I understand that, but in the past, we had party chairs.
Yes.
And it went on, and there was no problems. So what you're asking to do now is go back temporarily where we used to be. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
If I wasn't clear, we temporarily, there used to be an increment paid to the county clerk there wasn't one for the tax assessor collector. I tried to explain why. Maybe I didn't do a very good job of it. I'm not even sure why. I don't know if anybody for sure knows why, but it appears to me that it was sort of a victim of circumstances, because the tax assessor collector had another function, an outside county function, and was off-site, and there was another person, and I don't know if it was considered part of her salary or not, this other person.
But if she wasn't there, someone assumed that role.
Yes.
So there was somebody there.
Well, I mean, and technically, the tax assessor collector was the registrar, period, but
And both party chairs seemed to accept that.
yes.
I think I can answer that. Susie's been the chief deputy voter registrar for 17 years. Since she's been here, she has done voter registration as long as she's been here. So I'm not sure, before I got here, who she answered to. Connie may be able to answer that a little better since she was in the role before me. But I know for 17 years, Susie has done the role of voter registrar.
And we've
As far
acted,
as processing daily work.
And, I will interrupt, go ahead.
we've been actively looking for an elections administrator, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes, for a number of months since Mr. Villarreal left. So it's not that we're dragging our feet or anything like that. We're actively looking for someone to take that role. So in between, I mean, to me, it makes sense to do what we're doing until we find one. So
I think the commissioners know, but just for purposes of putting it on a recording, can you remind me the incident that was described at the beginning of this meeting involving what some people call the voter purge? As I remember it, and please tell me if I'm wrong, you were getting your instructions from the Secretary of State's office
Yes.
and followed those to the letter?
It was an advisory.
And if I remember the total number, remind me the total number of people, of Blanco County voters that received these notifications that their registration was in jeopardy was 7? And how many did it wind up being when you managed to work through the process?
We heard back from all but 2.
Okay. Whatever happened to those 2, do we know?
Well, federal judge just, I'm thinking it was in April, said that everybody would stay on roll, so nobody was ever purged.
Okay. And were you ever fined,
No,
jailed,
no,
penalized?
no.
Do you know why our county was, I mean, the Secretary of State didn't just send it to our county, did they?
No, it went to 254 counties.
And there were 254 different voter registrars that were having to deal with it? And some
Yes.
dealt with it one way and some dealt with it in another?
Yes.
Okay. And by dealing with it one way or another, some people followed what the Secretary of State's instructions were and some people decided not to, right?
I don't think that's true in saying. We
Okay.
followed it to the best.
We did, but there were some tax assessor collectors that chose not to follow the Secretary of State's instructions, right?
I don't think that's right.
Okay. Okay. So everybody followed the instructions as far as you knew. So we just got singled out and sued because we were little, maybe?
From what my attorneys told me at the time, Kerr County and I ended up in federal court because we voted on 100 miles.
Because we were not, which makes sense because there's, in federal courts and civil process, 100 miles is a subpoena range.
And that's why Kerr County and I were in federal court that day.
Okay. All right. Sorry, just.
I'm good. I just wondered if, since we've done it before, why we wouldn't do it again.
But there's some other considerations to this idea of a increase, I think. Are there not? How would can we do it? And if we could the commissioners do it? And if they could, how would they do it?
On the stipend?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, as far as literally the line items or if it's possible.
Well, you can, since they are doing the election administrator's job, you can take that money, part of that money that is in that line item, to pay them a stipend.
There's 3,000 a month in salary, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, the money that y'all budgeted for Oscar's, say Oscar's salary,
Uh-huh.
of course, it hasn't been used since he resigned. So there is some money in there that if y'all choose to do so, that could be paid to them out of the election administrator's salary.
So it's been accumulating for December and January and now February.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about paying in arrears? Because that was a
Cannot
question
be
that was
done.
asked. It cannot be done.
No.
Legally, not.
Legally,
So if the Commissioners Court wanted to do anything, it would be prospective.
yes.
It would be after this election cycle.
I'm sorry.
No,
No,
it would,
it can
it would
start
become
immediately.
whenever you took action.
I got you. Yeah, I understand from the time you put it in effect.
The previous, Ms. Waller was previously, and Ms. Newman before her,
Yes.
were previously paid an additional approximately $3,000,
Yes.
$250 a month,
Yes.
roughly.
Yes, roughly.
Is that what they're asking again? Or?
No, they would like more, but I'm
Yeah.
just trying to get the facts laid out for you so you know what's there.
Right.
I'm sure, I don't want to speak for them really, but my impression is they would like probably all of what the elections administrator would make in a month.
In a month, same pay,
Yeah,
which was 3,000 a month. Is that correct?
right. That's what they would ask for, I think.
Each person.
No,
No,
split.
Combined.
Right.
How many hours does this take you away from your normal duties?
A lot. I mean, I can't speak for Laura, but I know all day yesterday she was in the elections room. They were busier. I know she worked all weekend with the elections. I mean, I've been here to run the reports, to get the equipment ready. Once this election is over, we both get ready for a runoff in May. I get ready for a school election in May. And then we start all over, get ready for the November general election. I mean, it's a never-ending cycle.
And y'all are splitting 3,000 a month to do that. If this is approved.
And if we were to hire an elections administrator on Wednesday, which won't happen, but if that were to happen, there's just no way. It's going to take a concerted effort between the two of them and the new person for that person to come on and assume all the roles, responsibilities, and functions.
Can I ask if we have any prospects?
Yes.
Well, if one of these administrator prospects pans out, when would they officially start, do you think?
I don't know. Depends on their availability, depends on what the election commission decides. I can only give you my thoughts on it because I'm just, like here, I'm one vote. But my goal really has been for probably since the first of the year that person would be up and running and handling the runoff election in May.
Yeah.
It's just a goal.
Right.
I don't know if it can be met or not. I would hope that it could be. But I didn't say hired by May. I said up and running and ready by May.
Well, I think because they have done it in the past, and we need somebody to do it right now, and y'all have been in the process of doing it, then I want to make a motion to,
Before you do, let me give you
Okay, go ahead.
one more piece,
Go
just so you have all the information.
all right,
There is another argument that when the elections administrator left, the functions went back to the two offices because the state law says those functions belong in the two offices as part of their duties. So, in other words, there's an argument, I'm not really making it, but there's an argument that the tax assessor collector's statutory functions include registrar, and the county clerk's functions include elections.
So you're saying that there's an argument that they're already being compensated within their regular salary for what they're doing?
I guess so. I hate to say it that way because I don't think they are, but you could say it. You could say it that you know, when you ran for those offices, those were the functions that you were running for. Now, it's not that doesn't really speak to how we got here, because we compensated at least one, if not two offices for a long time.
We did. Over and above their regular salaries.
So, been pretty quiet over here. Anyway, I brought it to y'all, and I didn't mean to interrupt your motion, but wanted y'all to have every fact.
Well, then I want to continue with my motion
All right.
to, let's see how to word it. I'd like to make a motion to approve the compensation for the county clerk and the tax assessor collector for their election duties. Can I say until we find an elections administrator, and for the amount of the $3,000 a month split between the two.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
Once an elections administrator is hired, this will cease?
That's the way I would like this motion to be made, to where as soon as we get one, get them up to speed.
No, I'm asking, once it's hired, does it cease?
I guess
Once they start on payroll, this ceases.
Okay.
Is
So,
my question to you, is that?
well, let's consider it, okay? If you're going into the May runoff and you hire somebody, then what do you do at that point? Immediately throw them in there, the election administrator, to run that runoff?
You're talking really about the transitioning and the functions. I think he's really talking about payroll, and I think to his point, we couldn't do both. Really, we just don't have it.
Okay, and if that's the case, then you would end it at that time. I mean, you've got to get there somehow.
The day elections administrator, based on your motion, I think the day the elections administrator signs on,
Okay.
it would have to cease. It would just have to.
Can I add that to my motion?
Well, we can just assume. I thought that was your motion.
Okay, well, sure. I didn't know if you wanted to have the time during the time when you train them, if it takes 6 months or whatever, and they're still running an election.
I understand your sentiment, but we just don't have we don't have it.
Not
If we-
budgeted for two of
Yeah,
them.
the funds aren't budgeted to do that.
If we don't have it, then we don't have it, and it ceases whenever they're elected. Okay.
That was my question.
That's your only question?
I have a problem with it. I have a problem with it because both offices have determined that it takes the entire office to do it. So if I'm stipending the elected official, but I'm not stipending the other ladies in the office, that's not fair to me. So I'm opposed to it, but that's my opinion.
It's fair.
And I'm opposed to it, but for a different reason. Because I think, I'm just watching the two of them, it seems like they take the bulk of the responsibilities and duties. It's her that stays late at night and her, for voter stuff. Now, they have other things going on in that office that all those ladies work very hard about, but I'm just saying, this particular functions seems to rest on their shoulders. So I'm not opposed to it for that reason. I'm opposed to it for the amount, honestly. I think, it just doesn't leave anything. For example, and we've been through this twice in the last several months with other hires, that if I'm worried that somebody's going to come through the door and interview with the Elections Commission and say, I'd love to have this job, but I don't think I want to do it for that price. And I won't have anything to come to you with to say, we have this much lapsed salary that if you all would like to, if you all would be willing to approve this elections administrator at X, we can afford to do that. But we won't have it because we will have paid it all to them. So that's my opposition to it.
Well, I'd like to have heard that before I made a motion.
I don't know where to go from here.
I can withdraw the motion.
Well, you got a motion and a
You
second.
do,
If you want, yeah, or you want to vote on it and see where we're standing?
yeah, I think so.
Okay.
All right, so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I hear Granberg and Weir, all opposed.
Aye.
I hear Eker and Leisman. And I don't even have to vote on it because it's tied. But in fairness, I will. I'm going to vote no.
Herman.
But would welcome an alternate motion.
For a lesser amount?
Yes, sir.
Someone else needs to do that. If they want it, I'm good with what just happened.
What were they compensated previously? How much? I still wrote it down.
The tax assessor received nothing additional. Well, again, I don't know that I can say that, but you can't tell because it would have been folded into another person's salary.
Okay.
But that's my argument. That's not necessarily what everybody would say, but that's my argument. And Ms. Waller was compensated, the clerk, and even the clerk before Ms. Waller was compensated around $3,000 a year.
Judge, and I believe that, and Camille, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the additional salary that Ms. Cresta received was based on that the tax assessor collector was never around. And she functioned as a tax assessor collector as an employee and not an elected official. That's what the increase was for, not for elections.
Well, but I'm maybe not,
But she had more duties.
but she oversaw the registrar duties here, and she was compensated. My memory is when she lived here, she was compensated pretty high as a county employee. That's my point.
Right.
Okay. Before I guess I'll step out and make the motion. But before I do, I want to make sure, because I've had some offline conversations, I want to make sure we think we can do this legally.
I don't see why, I mean, the money's there. It's not, you're not changing the amount of the money, and because of a resignation, the duties go back to the offices. So.
We're not adjusting the budget.
No, we're not adjusting the budget, we're not changing, no.
We are.
You run into issues.
We are paying for the service that we would, if Oscar were here today, we'd be paying for the service.
Yes.
It's just that they're doing it. Which would justify Commissioner Weir's motion, but I'm concerned about Okay.
So what?
I'm going to float this, and I'll certainly open to the Commissioners Court saying whatever. But I'm
Judge,
good.
I'm sorry.
No.
I mean, you could table it until you make sure that we can legally do this.
Can I put that in my motion? After review from,
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Which would probably be good. Go ahead. No, it's open. I want to hear from the auditor.
Do you want to take a brief recess and let me try to get a hold of Cindy?
I figure I'd go through the county attorney's office.
Okay.
This is where it makes nobody happy, so be it. I think I'm gonna move that, basically the same terms as Mr. Weir, that we compensate the two of them in the interim till a new elections administrator is on board, but at the rate of, $500 a month. That's my motion.
for both of them,
No, well, yeah.
per each?
Yes,
500 a month each?
yes. That's my motion. Is there a second?
With the attorney's approval, right?
Absolutely, I'm sorry. If that was not understood, then,
With the-
subject to county attorney approval.
With the attorney's approval, I'll second it.
And basically, that's putting it back what it was previously.
No, it's a totally different number. I believe Ms. Wallace's number was 300, and I believe Ms. Spee's number was 0. And I'm making the motion to compensate them for $500 a month each until we have an elections administrator on board. That's the motion.
When the attorney approves it? And
It's subject to
that it's-
attorney approval. So, discussion.
I'd still stand where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I'm not greatly comfortable either.
That's, part of it. That's why there's 5 of us.
So are we for a vote or what?
I guess so. Anything else? I made this motion to get it on the floor. I'm not even all that excited about it, but we need to move on. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed.
Aye.
Commissioner Eaker, Commissioner Leisman opposed.
Is there a second?
I have that Commissioner Weir seconded it, and this is a public meeting, but it is not the public's meeting. So thank you very much for your input, but I really don't need it. Well, you're welcome to review the tapes, which you do regularly anyway. All right, so Ms. Ellsbury apparently had to leave, I guess, with a phone call, but is there a surrogate, Ms. Ellsbury?
Did that pass?
Yes, 3-2. Item 13, Ms. Ellsbury has before you the administrative order from Judges Garrett and Stubb appointing a new county auditor to take effect April the 1st. You want to say anything?
No, sir, I'm just a messenger. I'm just bringing it to court and getting it entered into your minutes.
And it is up for your acknowledgement of their order. And the new auditor being appointed is Lisa Nance.
I make a motion to acknowledge the administrative order appointing Lisa Nance as a part-time auditor for Blanco County for the remainder of the 2-year term effective April 1st, 2020 and ending October 1st, 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Eaker, discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Because of the computer problems we are experiencing on campus, we don't have the burn ban maps for you this morning, but the burn ban is still an item on the agenda for your consideration if you care to do so.
I did look it up, and it's between 300 and 400 on the index, so it's,
We're still safe.
we're still pretty safe, in my opinion.
All right, so without any further comment, we're going to pass on the burn ban. This takes us to item 15.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Also,
Commissioner Weir, discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.